Have you ever wondered what would you feel if you found your family died in a horrible plane crash? This is what our first post is about. Warning, the following content might be disturbing for some viewers. So, this is gonna be a bit of a story, and it's not my story, it's my aunt's. December 28, 2013, in South America, Chile to be exact. Both my cousins, the pilot, and one of my cousin's boyfriend died in a plane crash. It was one of the things that made me dip into the deepest depression of my life. 6 hours before we got word, my uncle, who is a commercial pilot, took his son and daughter to the small airfield they were allowed to fly that day, I believe. My aunt had gone with them as a trip, and for their privacy and mine, let's call my youngest cousin Ella and my oldest cousin Eric. They had flown the plane a few times, and Ella suggested that her mom, my aunt, got on the plane with them. She declined as she doesn't like planes and offered to watch from below with my grandpa and grandma. Ella and Eric got on the plane with Ella's boyfriend, 3 passengers and 1 pilot. My uncle stayed on the radio to talk to them from below. The plane took off, flew maybe 40 to 60 kilometers from the base. My grandpa, who had to break the news to my mom, said that this was the worst part. The plane's engine started spewing black, thick fumes and flew for another 10 to 20 meters before exploding mid-air. My uncle says he was frantically trying to contact them to get to the ground. The plane was on fire and they were in danger. He says he said please and the plane exploded. The most horrendous explosion. My aunt was obviously frozen, horror on her face. The plane crash landed in a vineyard. The next part still brings me to tears now because it's so terrible what the fuck happened to them. I would never wish their death on anyone. My aunt and uncle ran to the plane with several other people. My uncle said he regrets it with every fiber of his being. The plane was on fire and he could hear it. He could hear his daughter screaming in agony and see his son motionless and dead through the flames. My aunt tried to get them regardless, but something in my uncle just stopped and he couldn't do anything. The fire was put out and then we were contacted. They couldn't get their bodies out due to the chemicals and the fire for 6 hours. I was 12 and I remember being in the basement while my mom sat upstairs talking to someone on the phone. She was snacking on mini marshmallows because it was 3 days after Christmas and we still had lots of stuff we don't usually have. I was in the basement playing GTA 5 when our landline rang. Now we usually don't get calls on the landline unless it's a call from our family. Obviously I picked it up and it's my grandpa. Something about his voice sounded off. He sounded upset or serious, and I greeted him with happiness because I live in Canada and I hadn't seen him for 2 years before that. He told me to pass the phone to my mom and I was worried, but said okay, because that's her dad. I remember coming back down with her and watching her sit down with mini marshmallows in her hand. She answered with happiness and then said, "¿Qué pasó?" Moments later, she lets out the loudest gasp. I look over again and her face contorted to one of pure distress. Her fist unclenched and marshmallows scattered the floor. She then suddenly cries, begging, "No!" She literally falls down and my dad is already running down to calm her down. She won't let up and she's absolutely destroyed at the unspoken news on the phone. The phone was left open, so my grandma most likely heard her cries and probably started crying too. My mom went outside and threw the worst physical crying fit she ever has. She kicked a hole in the wall, broke several pictures. She curled up on my living room floor after my dad had to restrain her from hurting herself anymore. At this point I'm asking what happened, and my dad just goes, "It fell," and my mom starts crying in my dad's arms. What the fuck fell? You know when kids start crying because they're confused? Or because there's a loud noise? I realized I was crying without even knowing what went wrong. I tried to help calm down my mom, and my dad just said, "Eric and Ella are dead, the plane crashed," and I broke down. I told my mom that I love her and that I'm sorry. I went upstairs and I can't remember if I told my brother or sister. I just remember watching my mom burst outside in the dead Canadian cold and try to curse God for taking away people so innocent. She was sent on the first flight the next morning to Chile, our home for family. I remember sitting in my room and crying hard for so long. I was on a wait list then to get to the therapy for my depression in a special program that doubles as a school and was supposed to wait like 2 years. I was bummed to start immediately. I became so depressed that I isolated myself. I wasn't eating, I only came out of the room to use the bathroom and shower, because even I hated the smell of body odor back then. I'm 18 now. 6 years passed and I'm still not ready to talk to my mom about what happened. I still haven't come to terms with what happened to them. I'm older than Ella now. She was only 16 when she died. I'm as old as Eric, who died when he was 18. The other day, I went searching for the articles that spoke the news of what happened, and was upset when I couldn't find anything related to it. I was upset when the internet erased their existence with articles of other unrelated events. I found 2 articles of the event. I have them saved under my phone as proof they were alive. They existed, and it makes me so fucking upset that the internet acted like they didn't exist. For our next post, what if a local legend turns out to be true? What if a murder created a ghost that manifests in ways that the OP felt on his own skin? Alright, so this one comes with a little backstory. Gonna be sort of long, so strap in. Mobile blah blah. I worked at an IMCA summer camp in Colorado. Cool spot, really secluded, no cell service or Wi-Fi. It backed up to some NFS land that we had permits to use. I digress. Before this was a summer camp for kids, it was a secluded farm or ranch owned by this family, the 𝓤𝓲𝓽𝓮, who had been living on it and running it for decades. Time frame we are talking about is circa 1890. I don't remember exactly. Anyway, this family would have these elaborate parties, and other people from Denver and Boulder and the like would come and dance and get shit-faced. They had a dance hall on the property, and this is where they would host parties. Side note, the original building is still on property and in use for staff and campers. So one of the older boys in the 𝓤𝓲𝓽𝓮 family took a liking to a certain Denver girl named Mary Jenkins. She frequently visited during the dance parties and ended up getting engaged to the 𝓤𝓲𝓽 boy. At one point, they were having a little pre-wedding celebration, and Mary was up visiting them for a month-long period. One day during her visit, Mary and her husband-to-be were taking some wedding photos. About a half mile from our camp proper, the dance hall area, there is this awesome canyon with walls maybe 400 feet high. On one particular wall, there is this really cool land bridge or arch in the rock. So they were up on this rock bridge thing, and suddenly Mary Jenkins falls off and plummets to the bottom of the wall. She wasn't dead upon impact, but was horribly mangled. Her groom-to-be and some others who were there carried her body back to the ranch house, now camp office, where she died. Now, there is some speculation whether or not Mary actually fell off the arch. Some people think that she was pushed off the rock by her fiancé. She had a large dowry, and I believe back in the day that was an official agreement that was guaranteed money. So after she died, the dowry was given to the Bowdower boy, and he married one of Mary Jenkins' best friends like a couple months later. So, speculative death with money and backstabbing. Something perfect for paranormal activity. Fast forward to modern day IMCA camp. I have had 3 specific encounters with this spirit that I and everyone else at the camp believe is Mary Jenkins. I know others who have had encounters as well, but I will only tell you guys about mine. Otherwise, I'll be typing all night. Encounter 1. Me and my girlfriend at the time were both working at camp. It was the weekend, so no one was there, but since we lived there at the time, we decided to go on a hike and come back to relax. We came back to camp and it is empty. No cars, nothing. Even our director, who lives there year-round, was gone. Taking advantage of our privacy, we decided to jump in the shower together in an empty cabin. At one point during our shower, there is a very distinct knock on the door of the bathroom. 3 or 4 knocks. We both look at each other confused, knowing we were the only ones there. Maybe someone came back? We figured it was probably our boss or something. I step out with a towel and open the door. No one. Confused and now a little creeped out, middle of the woods, I hopped back in the shower, finishing up, and there was another fucking knock on the door. At this point I am shitting my pants. Was creeped out the rest of the night, but nothing else happened. Encounter 2. I was off work and I was watching a movie in my personal cabin. My personal cabin just so happened to be the original home of the Bondhauer family. It was busted and rickety, but hey, it was standing. Had a bed and a fridge. One night I went to sleep watching a movie. My computer was probably half battery life. Hopefully just enough to finish the movie. If not, my computer would go into sleep mode and essentially shut down. I fell asleep anyway, so whatever. At about 3 AM, my computer roars to life. The movie I had put in earlier in the night starts playing on its own from the beginning. This is usually something that needs to be manually activated by clicking or prompting a program, etc. Additionally, my computer was at full battery. Some weird electronic thing going on. I shut that thing down and had a very uneasy sleep. Encounter 3. I was in the dining hall. The old dance hall was converted into the mess hall with kitchen, etc. I was standing in the kitchen with a coworker cleaning up the breakfast. All of a sudden, our dishwasher started a cycle on its own. Just started running, creepy as fuck. My coworker noticed it too and was freaked as well. Additionally, there are lights on in the cabins at night when no one has been in them, and random doors to cabins open or lock. Just super weird shit. I don't think Mary Jenkins is a bad ghost. She doesn't want to hurt anyone. She just wants you to know that she is there. But yeah, it's definitely haunted. I also didn't believe in paranormal before working there. I also have a legit newspaper article about her death in the canyon from the 1890s. I will try to post a picture of it.